Hey, I'm Pops. I want to talk to you about Birthright. This was a recommendation from Left Eye Ego, so it's something I would really enjoy. This is going to be based, my video is going to be based on like the first portion of the story. Homecoming is the name of the trade paperback, it's volume one. I'm past I don't know. I'm probably on issue 2025. I'm not exactly sure where I left off, but I'm going to give you an overview of where I'm at in the story, whether or not this is a story for you, some things I like, some things I don't like, that kind of thing. Joshua Williamson wrote this, and this is actually from 2014. And I will say, one thing that I liked about the back of the book is every now and again we actually do get some nice commentary, and he seems to be a real fan of like child adventure stories, especially from the 80s, like Neverending Story, The Goonies, Stand By Me, those kinds of things. And it inspired him to say, well, what happens next? Like, let me have an adventure story after an adventure, that kind of thing. And Birthright sets up really kind of like it's the same character. So, okay, there's a surprise birthday party for a little boy named Mikey. Dad's playing, dad's being the distraction. Everybody's setting everything up for the party, playing ball in the woods, throws the ball. Kid goes in the woods, done, disappears. Nobody knows where he is, right? We don't know what happened, right? Then we fast forward a year. Dad has been accused of murder. It's ruined their age. There's a brother whose life is completely destroyed at school, treated very, very badly. So all of this stuff is what's transpiring in this story. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, after all of this, um, 1 year later, this guy shows up, right? This Keanu Reeves cyborg looking kick butt warrior who's shows up with all these weapons, swords and knives, all sorts of crazy stuff, right? And explains that he's actually Mikey. And then he basically starts talking about how he was sucked away to this alternate world, Terranos. He was raised up as a warrior. He was a savior for their land, and he's come back to our world because there are some other things there that have to be unpacked and that kind of thing. So, if it's difficult because they have a flashback to his world in that 1 year and then back to our world, and they're connecting some of those dots. The connecting of the dots is a very slow burn. More interesting is kind of like him taking the brother on this journey into our world and what he's trying to hunt down, what he's trying to do, and then what the twist is, right? So it has a lot of fantasy elements. When there is action, the action is really good. I think the action is it's rewarding. It's drawn well, it's done well, that kind of thing. But there is not a lot of action. Like there are. I mean, you talk about a lot of pages to get through before you have some action. But we do get cool characters. We get great art when we get it. Cool designs and elements like that. These are these creatures in this world. So Williamson took his time to really kind of build world with some different characters, things like that. I don't know that we totally understand everything in that world. This is the mentor that kind of raises him up. Um, yeah, and he just kind of goes into this place like I'm a savior and I'm the whatever, and he's like I don't I he I, I didn't care for young Mikey being basically like a pacifist. A little boy who was allowed to have a knife and not want to cut something was a little weird or whatever, but they move it along okay. It manages itself. Um, this is Raya. She's a key player in all of this. Later on, we see more of her, and then you have just interesting elements that are sort of introduced in this fantasy world, and then who he turns into being, that kind of thing. So I think if you like fantasy, there's a lot of those elements that you would like. I think that you aren't really going to be too surprised by much. I will say this: you can tell it's Joshua Williamson from a couple years ago because his dialogue writing is a lot more on point now. He's grown as a writer. This dialogue tends to be kind of clunky and formulaic, predictable. It's not bad. It's just he's a better writer now, and the story itself is solid enough that it kind of carries things along. You enjoy the mom and the dad, the brother. You sort of have like cliche elements with like a police investigative type element. None of that really interests me too much because it's more about the family, and then of course Mikey with his brother in this journey. and I won't get too much into some of the other spoilers. Um, yeah, this is the armory that he kind of shows up with. Me came equipped, right? Um, how do I feel about it? Well, it reads fast. So, like I said, I'm really far into it. Um, and I will probably come back around and maybe do another volume read or another volume analysis for you. But as far as getting through Birthright, especially the first volume, it's a pretty quick read. But I'm not going to try to say, I'm going to say it's like a good read, not a great read. It's like solid. And it's only solid though if you're willing to kind of be patient with it, allow you to get attached to Mikey and the brother, allow yourself to kind of figure out what we're building with this whole fantasy world and what some of the rules are. Because it's not because there's not a lot of time spent on it, it's not fast to get there. It's not like you're being sucked into a world like Dragonlance. Like you turn the first page and boom, you're there, and you got to have really quickly figuring out what everybody is. This is like a back and forth in our world, their world, our world, their world. So it's a little bit of a slower burn for all of that, but not. It doesn't ruin the story or take away a bit bad. There are no like real off-putting elements, really. I mean, the mom is trying to be like alpha mom, but the dad is kind of a little bit of a loser dad, but not, I don't want to say this. It wasn't like degrading to men. It was more like he's just kind of like this, right? And we touch a little bit on his backstory at some point. We kind of learn a little bit more of why he's like that. And again, this is where Williamson's better now than he was then. It's like it seemed odd though, like that she wouldn't know all of that. It seems odd that they've been married, had kids this long, and they wouldn't have kind of worked through a lot of those elements. And it's still such a big problem between the two of them. Um, let's see. Yeah, other than that, I think it's again, it's solid. It was a fine read so far. I'll carry on with it. It's not going to be a high priority for me to carry on. I do appreciate Ego recommending it, said I would like it. Well, I do. It's okay. But it's not like okay, we got to stop everything and get Zeus and Birthright. But it's definitely good. So if you ran across it, definitely at a show or something, it's very inexpensive or one of the online outlets. Feel free to check it out that way. So that's my take on it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I am Pops.
Yeah. Right? And I'm not playing no games. Yeah.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.